Jemima paced back and forth in the office of her trainer, Mr. Richie MacDonald. Chewing her lip nervously, she pondered how she was going to tell him she didn't know how to fight. The door opened suddenly, disrupting her thoughts. Jemima watched as a man in his 30s with slightly graying hair stormed in. "No, Janice, I don't really care if the installers aren't finished with the tile in the dining room in time for your dinner party," he said into his cell phone. Jemima watched as he passed her by and took a seat at his desk with his back to her. "Because Janice, I hate your friends, and I won't be at the party anyway," he said to the woman on the other end of the phone. The man paused for a moment and listened to the woman talk. "Look, I have to go, you've made me late enough for my appointment." "I'll see you when I see you," he said, and promptly hung up the phone. Turning his chair around, he looked at the paperwork on his desk and then at Jemima. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, Mrs. Featherford," he said with a smile. Jemima returned his smile. "That's all right, Mr. MacDonald, no trouble at all," she said. Richie read over her file for a second. "So, energy melee, huh? That should work out nicely," he said, smiling at her again and taking a leisurely look at her body. Jemima squirmed slightly at his gaze and cleared her throat, getting his eyes back to hers. "Anyway, I have a mission for you," he said, reaching for another file on his desk. "About that Mr. MacDonald, well, I don't know how to fight," she blurted out with a shamed blush taking over her face. Richie looked up from the file. "Huh? Oh, well, this mission shouldn't have too much fighting for you. I need you to retrieve a stolen painting from Mahelian's hideout across town," he said and handed her the file. Jemima read the information. A very valuable painting had been stolen from the Atlas Park Museum of Art 2 nights earlier. Jemima read that the police suspected a group of at least 12 Hellions, a low-level gang in the city, to be behind the robbery. "Look, I need this resolved today. Go get the painting, and when you get back here I'll put you in touch with someone who can train you to fight." "Deal?" he asked. Before she realized she was doing it, Jemima was nodding and being shuffled out the door by Rick. Standing outside his office, she read the address of the hideout and started to leave when the door behind her opened. "I almost forgot," he said and stepped up close to her, towering over her diminutive frame. Placing an electronic bracelet on her wrist, Richie explained the device's function. "This is a tracker that I developed for the heroes of the city. In essence, it allows us to monitor your work, increase your security level, and teleport you to the hospital if you get knocked unconscious or if your vital signs start to fade," he told her. Jemima smiled, probably a dumb question, but what's a security level, she asked, her blush returning. Richie smiled. Basically every hero has a security level, which determines what type of missions they can receive, what areas of the city they can enter, heck even what kind of costumes they can purchase from icon tailors, he explained. Jemima nodded and bid Richie a good day before making her way out of City Hall. As she left the building, she heard the bracelet on her wrist beep. As she looked at it, she saw a red flashing light on it. She pressed it and a map came up on the small screen in the center of the bracelet. The map showed a green arrow with her name on it, and a red star across town. Must be the place, she thought, and set off for her destination. Must be the place, she thought with a small pang of dread as she looked up at the emaciated building before her. Broken windows, smashed walls, graffiti, a real fixer-upper, she thought to herself as she approached the front entrance. The door creaked loudly as she opened it, and promptly fell off of its hinges, and went crashing through the floor, ripping apart the silence of the building. "Way to go, Nancy Drew," Jemima thought as she looked around for signs that she'd been discovered. After a moment of silence, she crept around the hole and deeper into the building. The slight rustle of her diaper seemed deafening in the silence of the building. Maybe this whole only wearing a diaper and shirt thing was a dumb idea, she thought to herself. Stepping around the corner, she saw 2 Hellions sitting at a table talking. "Looks like I'm not too late for the party," she said quietly. "Actually, you're right on time," a voice said from behind her.